thank you so much, Layla and Bobby. I'm Sue Sullivan, and I am truly honored to be moderating this year's panel. Personal experiences with CF, especially those shared by adults living with this disease, are among the most powerful tools that we have to truly deepen our understanding, strengthen advocacy, inspire fundraising, and move us closer to our mission, including finding a cure. I know that you'll find today's panelists' stories meaningful, insightful, and energizing. So let's dive in. First, I'd like to reintroduce you to Randell and invite her to share a little bit about herself so that we can get to know you.
Hi everyone, I'm Randell. You might have seen me speak last night if you were there. I am 38 years old. I am from Chicago, Illinois, and I now live in Detroit with my husband who's from there. Our two kids, Gibson and Cooper, and our dog Winston, who we haven't mentioned, who is our first baby. I was diagnosed when I was 6 months old. My mom tells me that I was very fussy, I was not gaining weight, I was constantly eating. A salt test is what finally proved that I did have cystic fibrosis, and I've just been involved and fighting for this since I was 6 months old. Not only my life, but as cystic fibrosis itself. And one of my big things is I started part of the Chicago's Grand Chef's Gala, a nightcap portion, because I was always involved. My parents got me involved very young, and I used to remember going to galas and balls and all this, and sometimes I would get to bring friends, and we thought it was so fun. So my parents would get me a table every year when I was old enough to start coming, probably around 10, 12, and I wanted to get my generation to be able to come. But tickets to these events, while it goes for a great cause, are very, very expensive. They were $500, $600, $700. So I wanted to be able to have my friends who can afford something like this. So I started the nightcap, which they would come at 9 instead of 6 o'clock for the cocktails. They'd skip the dinner. You know, you're a little young for the presentations. And from 9 to 12, they'd have open bar, desserts, dancing, and tickets were only $75. And we would sell out every year. It started at $250, and then we would go to 350 people, and we'd have to cap it. Now tickets are $150 a person, and they still sell out at $350. And I've just brought in this young generation to get them familiar with cystic fibrosis. And that's my point, because we're the future. You know, we need people to be knowledgeable. I don't necessarily always need your money. I need the knowledge. Knowledge is power, and sharing that with everyone. Now my friends look forward to the gala every year. It's Randall's annual wedding. We dress up, we have a great night, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm here, I'm appreciative to be here. I'm excited to talk to all of you guys and the panel, and we'll hear some different sides and different stories about cystic fibrosis and what all that means for us.
Thanks, Randall. Scott, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Dabenne. As you could hear from my voice, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, but I currently live in Saratoga, New York, with my wife, Erica, and my twin boys, almost 12 years old, Alex and Jordan. And I have a golden retriever who thinks he's a cat sometimes, named Tucker. I was actually diagnosed at 40. I had been misdiagnosed my whole life. I was told I had asthma and all kinds of other breathing problems. And it wasn't until my wife and I were looking to start a family that the urologist, of all people, noticed that I had breathing issues and I didn't have a vas deferens. And he's like, hey, do you have CF? And I'm like, no. And he was like, yeah, I think you do. Go get tested. And that completely rocked my world. It was such a bittersweet diagnosis because I finally had an answer, and I had access to medications and treatment that I didn't have access to before. But on the other hand, I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. And when I got involved with the CF community, and they showed up for me in ways that I will always be appreciative for, and made me realize I wasn't a unicorn, I wasn't alone, and they helped me navigate the next few years of my life. So I try to do the same. I'm a mentor to others. I try to make myself available because I truly believe that what we need a lot of is support. To your point, Randall, like, it's not always about the money. So I just want to be there to support others the way I've been supported. So that's really important. So I thank you all as well for the work that you do.
Thank you, Scott. Hello, Chyann. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Chyann Hoyle. I am originally from Statesboro, Georgia, but I'm currently living in Augusta. I work actually at the same hospital that I've grown up going to for my CF care my whole life. I am a molecular technician because I graduated from the University of Georgia with a degree in microbiology. So shout out to all my dogs. So I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old. They actually discovered that my sister was in the womb when they discovered that she had CF, and they said, this is genetic, you should test your sister that you already have as well. So I have never known a life without CF. It's something that I've grown up going to, like Randall. I've been going to Great Strides since I was extremely young, probably since I was 5. But once I got old enough to in high school and once I got to college, I became really involved in my own advocacy efforts. So I started doing Tomorrow's Leaders, the college program. I started advocating in the Miss America organization about cystic fibrosis and others who are living with disabilities and how we're navigating through life. And I try to be involved in the CF Foundation as much as I can as well, because I love advocating for those of us who have CF and just kind of reminding everyone what daily life with CF or a disability kind of looks like.
Thank you to each of you. So it's so interesting because you have such a variety of experiences and yet so much in common. And I'm curious, will you help us really understand how has CF impacted more than beyond your lungs in maybe ways that people haven't expected? And why don't we start, you want to start, Randall?
Sure. So I think this group knows a lot about cystic fibrosis, but we're trying to portray is that it's not just CF, it's what you don't know. So many other side effects have come about, and for me personally, obviously I'm small, I've had more digestive issues. Growing up, I take a lot of enzymes. Every genetic formation obviously has different side effects, different outcomes. Mine's not so much in my lungs, mine's more pancreas, liver, digestion, that kind of situation. So it's enzymes. Knock on wood, I've never been hospitalized for CF. I haven't had exacerbations, anything like that. Small, bad stomach aches, that kind of stuff. But growing up, I didn't know better. It was a stomach ache. I skipped school, kind of so much thought that was normal. Besides that, as I got older, one of my friends who I worked with, I was complaining that I couldn't walk my foot, and I was getting these weird lesions on my knees, and she looked it up, and no one knew what it was, and my ankles were swelling and all that. And so she started Googling. We worked for Oprah, and we were in the research department, and she took it upon herself and one day was like, Randall, I think you have CF-related arthritis. And I was like, that's a thing? What? Why is everything related to CF? And I took it to a doctor, and he said this was the first patient that he had with CF-related arthritis, but that I matched every symptom and diagnosed me with that. And I haven't had an exacerbation in a while. Again, knock on wood, it can come from stress. I don't know what it comes from, but they're not fun. The walking, the pain, the joint swelling, all of that. And then also trying to have kids, we started doing blood levels and all that, and realized that I was on the up and coming of CF-related diabetes to add to it. So I wore a constant monitor, just to keep the blood sugar levels somewhat even, but again, with CF, it's a lose-lose. I can't go on a diet. I need to eat these calories to gain weight. I can't not eat these sugar things because then I drop, So it's just a hard balance. I'm not wearing one anymore. We kind of just monitor it during pregnancy for the kids, but those are just two of the things that come along with all the rest that CF has to come with.
Chyann, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Randall, I do have CFRD as well. I actually do still wear my Dexcom constantly. I have Smarties right beside the computer in case I drop during this thing, because it doesn't really stop for anyone. It doesn't care that I have a conference to go to right now. It just happens all the time. So same with, I also very similarly had a lot of GI issues, and it was really funny comparing and contrasting with my sister, because my sister very much had its stereotypical representation of just having lung issues, and I didn't really have any issues until I got to college, and it started kind of this laundry list of other things. So I also have a lot of issues with my sinuses. It's not really in the lungs, but I'll be coughing up stuff, and it's not really, I tease, it's not like coughing up anything, it's just coughing out stuff from my sinuses, and I've had a couple surgeries with trying to get rid of some of the mucus that's built up in kind of in my head. So those are very, yeah, like I said, very similar to Randall, just a lot of GI issues and not being able to digest things as well, and having high liver enzymes.
Yeah, and I had a lot of the issues I had were more mental. I felt I was able to handle. I got used to the physical. It's all I knew. I also had GI issues, but I didn't know I had GI issues because I hadn't been diagnosed. But growing up as a skinny little kid, I was a late bloomer, walking around with an inhaler. I felt like I was just stereotypical nerd weakling that you would see on TV. So I would always try to hide the fact that I had trouble breathing. So it was important for me to try to do the things that everybody else was doing. And one of the things that was really important was to walk to school. And the good thing about growing up in Brooklyn is that we had a lot of traffic lights on the corners. So I got really good at timing my walk, that I can get to the corner when it was a red light. And then I could break for a minute and a half and catch my breath. And if I missed a light, I would stop and tie my shoes or go into my bag for something. So a lot of it was more just the mental aspect of trying to be like everybody else, but being different at the same time.
Scott, thank you so much for sharing. That's such an impressionable story, so I appreciate you being open and sharing that. Chyann, and you want to talk a little bit about how it was to grow up with your sister and what that meant?
Yeah, so like I said, it was really interesting kind of the comparing and contrasting, because my sister was always kind of seen as the more sick one because she had all these lung issues. She had the exacerbation, she was hospitalized a lot, and I was a perfectly healthy kid kind of despite having CF. Well, once I got to college, I became aware that I wasn't exactly thriving. It's hard to say you're thriving when you can barely go to class because you're down with a stomach ache all the time. So I kind of always say COVID was my blessing in disguise, because going online and having things recorded, having the ability to go later, because sometimes it would be embarrassing to have to go to class, try to fight and get there, and then to be in the bathroom for the entire lecture or for 90% of the lecture. I'm not learning anything like that. So being able to start online classes was really important, really helpful. But going back to my sister, she started Trikafta in 2019. So very much after we both kind of went from pediatrics to adulthood, we kind of switched. I became the not healthy one, and she was thriving on Trikafta. I was not able to take it because my liver couldn't tolerate it. I was having these stomach issues. I was having hives that they didn't know what were the cause of. And it was just such an important way of like, oh, just because it's not lung issues doesn't mean she's healthy. It just means that it's not your typical presentation. So kind of that comparing and contrasting was both like, was good and bad. So it definitely kind of brought some more awareness to how, despite even, my sister and I have the same genetic mutation, and not even just the same mutation, we have so many shared genes because we're related. So just seeing that genetic similarity and still being presented so differently was really interesting.
Thank you, Chyann. So let's turn to beyond the physical burden, and we know that many people living with CF manage a lot of mental burden too. And I know you're a parent, I'm a parent, and we're always managing a lot of mental load, thinking about the next step. So I'm curious maybe if each of you will touch on, how has your mental load shifted, particularly over time? What does that look like in your CF life journey?
So for me, I never let CF get in the way. Growing up, I wanted to be an athlete, 5'1". I played every sport. I wanted to keep up with all the boys. I went to school, went to college. Nothing held me back. I've always worked. I started as a sports producer, went to TV production, and now in Detroit, I'm a travel agent, if anyone needs a vacation after this VLC conference. And I just need an outlet, something like that. My kids are my world, my husband's my world, but putting my efforts into CF, to my family, and to a job, I think keeps me as balanced as I can be. The mental load for me was never growing up being different or coughing in front of my friends. That honestly never really bothered me. It became more of a mental and emotional toll doing the infertility, which is another thing with CF that I know we'll talk about a lot today, but I didn't know. You know, my husband went and, while we were dating, early on dating, just came home one day and told me that he had gotten a full genetic testing panel done. And I was blown away. I was like, wow, this is gonna be my husband. And he wanted to know more about CF, but also his genetics and what that meant for our future and our kids. He, fortunately, was not a CF carrier, so I think that made him feel better about our future too. You know, it's still scary regardless. But so we thought there was no issues. You know, we went, our retrieval was so easy, more eggs than a football team. And we got great embryos, everything. And I was like, wow, this is gonna work, no problem. We didn't really know. People don't like talk about it not working. Gibson took 4 tries. So that became the mental load that I was ready to give up. My husband, everyone's like, you're not giving up on CF, why are you giving up on this? And I was like, well, there are other ways for families. You know, there aren't other ways about CF. And I was like, let's give it one more try. We like kind of changed our outlook, and I took it upon myself then to actually change my medication. I thought that some of the medication that I was on my whole life, I was actually taking Z-Pak prophylactically. And I was like, there's something that I'm taking that's, you know, resisting these transfers. And I told my doctor, I spoke up, and I advocated for myself, went off of Z-Pak, and number 4 worked, whether that is what made it work or not, and we had Gibson. And then we wanted to do it again, and I was like, we gotta start trying kind of early again, because it could take another 5 tries, you know? And again, still not on Z-Pak, and number 5 worked for Cooper, but that mental load was, it's still CF, but this is the outside, another factor of cystic fibrosis, the infertility, that really started to bring me down and make me upset and sad, and it showed in my relationship, it showed in my career, you know, but here I am, really grateful, here, healthy, 2 kids. Again, like I said last night, I do it over and over again, but it's still not just infertility, it's just another part of cystic fibrosis.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I go back and forth between these feelings of invincibility and my mortality. So I'm like, wait a second, I lived 40 years with CF and didn't know it. Am I a superhero? And then I got cancer and I beat it. And I'm like, well, maybe I am a superhero. And then the kids came along, and I was like, oh my God, what if I die tomorrow? Like, what's going to happen to them? Is there any? So I have to keep reminding myself. I got a call from my doctor. Honest to God, true story. He calls me on a Thursday, and he goes, I need you to go to the hospital. Your left lung is collapsed. We need to do aggressive pulmonary, toilet, whatever. And I'm like, am I gonna die in the next 3 days? And he goes, no. I said, I'll be there Monday. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I got things to do. I got a family. And then, so I have to check myself. And that's where my wife is really helpful, is she'll keep an eye on me to kind of bring me back down to earth. But I struggle now that I have kids, like I'm sure so many parents do, is am I gonna be around long enough to see them become good people or good adults or whatever term you want to use. So I feel like I've handled the physical stuff. I'm so used to it. So I struggle with the mental aspects of it.
I feel the same with you, Scott. Like, I've fought and fought physically, and now with the 2 kids every day, it's what's gonna happen to me tomorrow? What's gonna, and they're too young now to understand, and I hope they stay too young that they never really know what CF is. But that's up to all of us here.
Yeah, like kind of adding that mental burden, like, and that mental load into your CF care. Like, it's always really interesting, because I know, like, you had mentioned, Randall, like sometimes our things are stress induced. So if you have so much going on, like up in your head, like that can manifest in very physical symptoms. I know for me personally, my mental load kind of comes in with like just remembering to take all my medications. Like I said, sometimes like I have issues with my liver and I'm taking like some medications, and some of the side effects of those are like this brain fog kind of thing. And I would get really down on myself for like not remembering to like take my medicine all the time. And it like, you do just kind of have to celebrate the small wins. And I am luckily now like a lot better about taking my medicine. But I remember that being like an actual thought when trying like new medicine. So say something, for example, like birth control. You didn't know, that's very important to take every day. Same time, same thing. So having that in my head of like, realistically, am I going to be able to take that every day at the same time the way it needs to be so it can be the most effective? And the realistic answer is no, like I don't trust myself to do that. Let's kind of look in other directions and kind of try to tackle it a different way. But having that like realistic outlook for yourself is really important, and just kind of celebrating the small wins. I know they've both mentioned their partners, and my boyfriend is very good about, sometimes I'm not the best at always celebrating the small wins, but he definitely is someone who takes it upon himself to kind of start celebrating the small wins with me. Like, yes, like I'm so proud of you. You took like all of your medicine today. I'm so proud. We kept your blood sugar like within range all day. It's always funny, one of my like favorite anecdotes was I trust him so much that when my sister got married last fall, I handed him my phone, said this has my Dexcom on it. He carried like candy, like all of his pockets. I was like, all right, this is your job for the whole wedding. Is you're in charge of my Dexcom, and you come find me, and you stay close to me so it'll register because you have pockets and I don't. And you can make sure that my sugar's staying like up where it needs to be. And it's just amazing to be able to trust somebody with your CF like burden as well.
Thank you, Chyann. I have to say, one of my favorite anecdotes from last night was watching Randall's husband across the stage as she was accepting her Alex Award beam with pride and celebrating those small wins. But that gave my heart a lot of joy, because the people that we get our support from really matter. And for people with CF, you have touched upon the people in your lives that help surround you and offer support. So maybe if you can just share a few more things. Thank you, Chyann, for introducing your boyfriend. We love that he carries around those candies for you and shows up to celebrate the small wins. Randall, what would you add?
So Chyann, when we had these calls, to meet each other and talk a few stories, and I got off one of these calls one day and I was like, Chad, how can I get you to carry candy in your pocket? I'm like, I love candy. CF-related diabetes or not, just like, you see I'm a little sad, just give me a Starburst. But he is such a big support system, and he is my partner in all of this. And talking about pills, it'll be funny, I'll be like, did you take your Trikafta? Did you take your enzymes? And sometimes I'm like, stop asking me. But then I'm also like, I'm 38, I've taken enzymes my whole life. Did I take my enzymes? And it's like, it just becomes part of your day that you kind of forget. But like, he checks me in and he's like, did you even pack your Trikafta? Like, we can't leave this place. And he's always there, he gets it, he knows. And he just knows a different side of me with all the side effects. So it's good to just, you need a support system. It doesn't matter who it is, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was saying before. I think it's so important that you have people in your life, and that's why the CF community was so important. They came out for me when I didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. But I'm so fortunate. I have great parents, but my wife is amazing. And one of the things she does is, because I will continuously push myself, and I don't like to admit when I don't feel well, but she'll catch the subtle changes if I'm wheezing or if my breathing pattern is different. It's funny, now when I go to the doctor, if she's not with me, the doctor will FaceTime her, because he's going to get more honest answers from her than from me. But the other thing she does, I'm a very weird dude. I'm a placebo guy. So I know you can't tell from my name, but I was actually bar mitzvahed. And right before I was going to do my reading, my mother says to me, are you nervous? And I said, very. And she gives me a pill and she says, this is going to take care of it. So I do the thing, I'm done, and I'm like, wow, that was great. And I find out later on it was a Tylenol. And then what would happen is, if I knew what a side effect to a medication was, I was going to get it. So my wife is like, all right, this is done. You're not allowed to know side effects anymore. So she memorizes all the side effects to every drug, to everything, and I have to go to her and say, oh, my eyes are burning. Nope, that's not a side effect. and it's been, I find I've become a lot healthier since I met her.
Going off of what Scott said, growing up, I swear my dad was my doctor. Like, I needed him at every appointment. If I had a stomachache, I'd call him and be like, what do I do? What do I do? And up until I met Chad, it was always, let me text him, let me see what he has to say, whatever he thinks. He has to come to these appointments, he has to know everything. And one day Chad was like, when do I get to be your dad? When do I take that role over? Because my dad was always like my number one favorite in my phone. And I was like, at some point. So like our big thing at our wedding was like, all right, Chad, today you can become my number one favorite, but that comes with a lot of other things, like you're now my doctor, you're my husband, you're on my call, like so it's just funny, you need the light sense in that too.
Thank you for sharing those. So Randell and Scott, you both mentioned the importance of having a family and that was something really important to both of you, that you wanted to have children. So just wondering, what were some of maybe the challenges? Randell, you've been very open about your IVF journey, but tell us a little bit more about the journey of family planning. And Chyann, I'd love to have you weigh in then at the end too.
For me, we grew up taking medicine, going to doctors, having shots, whatever it might be. So yes, infertility meant 1 million shots every day, 1 million pills, 1 million doctor's appointments, blood work, all this, but it would be getting a bad result. Like hearing that it didn't work, obviously that was horrible, or hearing that this blood level was too low. Like when you do a retrieval at the beginning, you have to be like a certain number. So we started our process out in California. So we were in Detroit and we would be flying to California quite often. And we went out for what was supposed to be the retrieval, and you're on such a regimented hormone level, so obviously I'm going crazy. And we're staying at a hotel, it's just my husband and I don't feel good. And like we go in and he's like, oh, today's not gonna be the day, this isn't the right level. And like you've been waiting for this certain day, and then the next, he's like, come back tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow. Nope, not tomorrow. I'm like, well, how long do I have to be in California for? Like I wanna go home, I want this to be done. So it's like you get bad results with CF tests all the time, but this one, I was like more used to that. This was a new thing, so getting those made me feel like a failure in a sense, because I have pushed through all of this. So it was hard, but we knew we wanted kids no matter what that meant. My number one goal in life was always to be a mom. And finally, whatever it took to work, I was like, whatever you guys think, change up the meds, change up the shots, change up the hormone levels, let's try this, let's try that. I'm like, whatever you think, you guys are the professionals. So I let them do it until I self-advocated, and I was like, no, now we need to change something. Like, your regime isn't working, and let's try something that I think,
Yeah, IVF was definitely a journey. I would say it was my wife. The emotional aspect for me was watching what my wife had to go through. So for me, I had to have a surgical procedure to get the stuff out. But it was my wife waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to have her blood drawn, then having to do the shots at night, and going through that journey. And we had people in our life that had gone through that, so they were amazing and in working through the emotional aspects that go along with it. But it was really tough on my wife, because the first time it didn't work and she blamed herself. And we decided to take a month off, and we did it again. And just watching her and how strong she was, I think I felt it brought us even closer together. But just to show you what an idiot I am, after everything, after we found out she was pregnant and everything, somebody asked me, are you worried about the kids having CF? I'm like, no, my wife's Puerto Rican, I don't have to worry about that. And they're like, you're such an idiot. You're such an idiot. So, then you worry about that. You're gonna pass it along to your kids or anything like that. But really, it was my wife was the hero in the whole thing. I just stood back. And just another quick story. After it didn't work the first time, she wanted to do something different the second time. So after she was implanted, she went into bed, she laid with her legs up, and she put the movie Magic Mike on, and she credits Channing Tatum with getting her pregnant.
Scott, your anecdotal stories are getting the room filled with laughter. So thank you for getting us going at 9 a.m.
I'm a weird dude, I told you.
Yeah, love it, love it. Chyann, what do you want to add to this part of the story?
Yeah, I'm 26. Like y'all are talking about, I'm not too far past the child. I was proud of myself. I just did my taxes the other day for the first time by myself. And I was like, wow, this is adulthood. This is I'm not so far removed from being a kid myself, so it's not something that I have thought of, like with my partner in far depth yet. But just with several of our friends getting pregnant, in my family we have a pregnancy coming up, and it's something that I've been thinking about. And yeah, that question of just, is it, am I going to pass CF on to our kid? Is like our kid going to have CF? And it's so different that, of course, like I do have CF, so it's not something that we aren't aware of. But like I wouldn't wish CF on my worst enemy. I like know how to manage it for myself, and it's still like a constant learning process. But it's still not something I would willingly want to give to my child. And so, like, I know for me personally, like, adoption has kind of been something that I've thought about, but even though, like, this, I'm still really early on in my, like, decision making. It's just something that's kind of floating through my head, not, like, a solid plan. But again, having a partner that I can have all these really open conversations with and saying, like, hey, this is some possibilities I'm thinking of, is this okay with you, is a really great thing. I so have loved, like, through all our meetings and things, been listening to Scott and Randall talk, and it's so amazing. Like, I have so much respect and so much admiration for not just parents in general, but for parents who are dealing with CF as well. And it's just like an amazing thing to witness and to hear like the behind the scenes and just see like how strong you guys are.
One thing in my journey that actually threw me for a big loop, and I think kind of shook Chad last night, was even though Chad did go get genetically tested and was not a carrier, when we went through the whole retrieval process and did the genetic testing that comes with the retrieval, I was like, so none of these embryos have CF? And he's like, my doctor was like, well, that wasn't even one we tested for because your husband doesn't have it, so there's 0%. I'm like, there's 0% in nothing in this world. Like, you're doing this anyway, why would you not have done that? So that really, like, that threw us. We were really not happy, but it is what it is. But then last night he's like, so are our kids carriers? And I was like, yeah, probably. I was like, obviously we're gonna get them genetically tested, but like we don't even know because the embryos, whether they had any CF gene or not. I'm like, yeah, they probably are. And it just all goes back to, it never ends, it's always something.
Yeah. So each of you in parts of your story, I'm always struck because you're such natural advocates and you've used that word to describe parts of your journey, whether it's sharing something about your medication regimen that you felt wasn't working or any number of ways that you've contributed to being a self-advocate. And I'm really curious sort of how has been being an advocate for yourself and for others really shaped your experience in giving back? Why does that matter? Why is that important to each of you to give back? And maybe let's start Randell.
So like I said, knowledge is power. It took me a while to self-advocate and say the meds I needed, the meds I didn't. Once I got used to what my body was going through, I'd be like, oh, this cough means XYZ. I need Z-Pak. I need whatever medication I thought I needed. And doctors at that point would just, they knew me, they just gave me what I thought I needed. I would have a quick Zoom call, whatever it is. So that led to, trying to get the word out about everything and bringing my husband on board. He has come to the Chicago Gala with me a few times. And when we moved to Detroit, his number one goal was like, we need to bring an event to Detroit. Like, I need my friends to know this. And so we started a fall ball in Detroit, and that's one of our really big things to get the word out, to get new faces, new names familiar with me and cystic fibrosis and what that means for our generation, what that means for our friendship, what that means for Chad. Chad, who grew up with these people who they didn't know what his wife was gonna have or how they can get involved. And now every year, we have this fall ball. This is gonna be the 4th year, and it's amazing. And we raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're getting more people there. So it's just being involved, and everything that I do to be involved, it's fun. It's, events maybe when I was growing up were a little cold. You sat there, you listened to sad videos, and that's not the point anymore. The point is to be uplifting. The point is to have fun. The point is to be engaging and get people to want to walk in that door. Our event in Michigan has a late night bowling party, so you just got to do what you can to get different people there.
That's a great takeaway.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I just want to build on that because it's so important for me as somebody who's diagnosed late and not knowing what tomorrow's going to look like, that the CF community really showed up for me. So it's important. I speak to a lot of people who get diagnosed late and try to help them understand what tomorrow's going to look like and how to navigate that and the feelings that go along with it. So it's really important for me to be there for them. I also selfishly gain a ton of strength listening to other CF people's stories because, they're warriors, true warriors, and it lifts me up when I'm feeling down. But the other thing too is, I think you're so right, Randall, people need to be active participants in their own healthcare plan. And for far too long, I've allowed doctors to misdiagnose me and tell me things that I didn't feel comfortable with. And I'm so lucky that I have a doctor now that we sit together and we discuss the plan together. And if I don't feel right about something, we explore it. And I would stress to everybody, be active participants in your healthcare plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to speak up and say what is your experience. I remember one of the first things when my boyfriend and I started dating, he had texted me after I had mentioned obviously like that I had CF after our first date, but he came after that. I was like, hey, we didn't really get to talk about this, but what he said was, I know what CF is. He also has a science background. So he's like, I know what CF is. He's like, I can also Google, like I'm able to do that. What is like your CF experience? What is there that I need to know that is specific to you? And that was always really impactful for me of like, you're right, like CF is truly like an individual journey, but it's all like our collective knowledge that is kind of propelling our care and our quality of life forward for our entire generations. So I know like the most important advocacy part for me is getting back to that next generation. I do that a lot through telling my story, but also by participating in clinical trials. And obviously, like the whole point is to learn more information, to develop new drugs, new therapies, new ways to combat this illness, because it is a lifelong thing, and it's always like kind of done with the context of so that the next person doesn't have to go through the same struggles that we do. But I'm always like, for the person who's hesitant to do that, I'm a really big advocate for just doing it anyways, because that's actually how I was diagnosed with my CF-related diabetes, is because I was in a clinical trial, not a clinical trial, I was in a research trial through my care team and through like at the university that I was going to, and I was a participant as a person with CF who didn't have CFRD, but doing these constant like check-ins and wearing the Dexcom and kind of getting like more glucose levels. I had my person call me. She's like, "Hey, just to chat. What do you think about all these?" And she was just asking me these random questions. I was like, yeah, I'm tired all the time, but it's spinal. I'm really worn down, but it's like the summertime and it's hot in Georgia. All these things that I had just explained away in my head. She on the phone was like, so I just listed off like all the symptoms of diabetes. I highly recommend, because I can't diagnose you, but I highly recommend that you go bring this to your care team. And like a month later, I had CFRD and I started managing it. And I do like, thank God that I wasn't diagnosed, because so many people are diagnosed when they're passing out from lows or going to DK, and it's a really dangerous situation. So we caught it super early because I was trying to like be in this research trial and just really putting my story out there and doing what I'm feeling. So I'm always like a really big advocate, because it's also something that you don't have to have CF to always participate in. There are controls. There are normal people compared to people with CF. So it is something that truly like we can all like be a part.
Thank you, Chyann. A round of applause for everyone who's participated in a clinical trial. So incredibly important. So thank you for adding that part to your story. Will you just touch on a little bit more about the clinical trial experience? It takes a lot of courage to sign up for a clinical trial. And I'm wondering, where did that courage come from to participate in a clinical trial?
Yeah, I know when I was younger, and so like our parents were still kind of signing everything, and they would always like check in with us, but it was so easy to check the box and say like, yes, we want to be in the patient registry. Yes, we want to, tell you all about the symptoms. So I know for me, my kind of line that I've started drawing, because I have participated in several different kinds of clinical trials or things of that nature. So my cutoff is at this point not doing anything that has to do with taking a new medication, because sometimes that would throw all of my stuff personally off. So it's something that I was like, all right, I struggle enough with like taking my own medications I'm supposed to take. I don't trust myself to take something else and like have it be like an actual like view of what this drug is supposed to be doing or what you guys are looking for. So I participate in like exercise studies. I do surveys all the time where I say, hey, this is how I'm feeling in all my daily life. This is just like more advocacy and just kind of doing surveys and just speaking about my experience. And yeah, it's something that I really enjoyed. And I'm really lucky because my care team at this point, I've been a pretty lifelong agreeer to these things. So they just bring them to me. Like, hey, we're doing this study. Do you want to participate? And it's very easy to just, I can say, yeah, absolutely. You can send my information wherever. I come to the doctor anyways. You have all this information. But there are like clinical trial finders through the CF Foundation's website, and I think it truly is just a really good way to get it.
So I've never been part of a clinical trial, but I have been part of studies since having Gibson and Cooper. You know, not enough time has gone by with the medication and having kids and what that means for CF. So, and with Trikafta especially. And with the CF-related diabetes, they were like, we're not sure how long you should be on Tradjenta for with the diabetes, because that's maybe not good for kids. And I was like, switch me. Like, you know, kids is something new. Put me on whatever you think to keep everything steady. So we like switched that during pregnancy, and then all of the doctors were like, do you want to stay on Trikafta? Like, again, there's not enough years of research to see what this may bring upon your children in the future, what may happen to your pregnancy. And I was like, the number one priority right now is my health. Mm-hmm. Like, I have to stay healthy, I have to stay alive, or I won't have a kid. So I chose personally to stay on Trikafta, and I was part of a study, kind of still am, I think, because they do it prolonged after having kids, of what's been happening staying on Trikafta and having the 2 kids. And to me, I think everything has been normal. You know, they're doing the blood test, they're probably looking at all that. But I was like, take my information. I want to be the part that helps the future generation to have kids. So whatever that means. So I did that, and now they're all talking to me about the new form of Trikafta, you know, which is 1 pill instead of 3, which is amazing. But I'm like, don't fix what's not broken. I'll fix something when my body becomes immune to Trikafta or when I need to try something new. But right now it's working, and there's no need to take 2 less pills a day. I mean, I've taken 100 pills a day my whole life. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. So I'm excited for the new drug and what that means for new people to try it, but I'm like, that's there in my back pocket for when I need to start something new and try something new. And maybe a study or clinical trial will be out for me to do it then. And I'd like happily participate because, again, I want everyone to know what their future entails, you know?
Thanks.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing, you know, as we talk a lot about the future, right, and studies, you know, and we talk more about the unexpected effects of CF. Like, we can't get life insurance. A lot of people that I speak to that have CF, they don't even plan for retirement. But because of these studies and because of the work of the people in the audience and everything that you guys are doing, you know, we have to start planning for retirement. It's such a great thing now. We're living longer. These studies are making a big difference. The work that you guys are doing, it makes a big difference. I'm the healthiest I've been in my life, and it's a direct result of these studies and the work that you guys do. So I just want to thank you all, sincerely.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Scott, for really connecting back to the audience, and whether you're in the room or online. I'd love to close by hearing a little bit more. You know, our theme obviously is community in action, and we have another great day of VLC. So really, you know, if each of you might share one thing that you'd want to leave the audience with as we go out and have another great day of VLC. And why don't we start with Chyann this time?
Yeah, I know for me, like, Scott's so right. And Randall's also touched on this too. Like, if you ever have the opportunity to listen to somebody's CF story, I say, like, absolutely take it. Even if you know, heard somebody with CF speak before, even if you've heard the same person speak with CF before, I can tell you personally, My story from now versus like 10 years ago, because I've been an advocate and I've like spoken at all these different events even since I was in high school. And my story is so vastly different because the CF experience is moving, it's improving, it's becoming all these great things, and we're getting older and we're dealing with new issues that we didn't even maybe realize we were going to deal with. So if you ever have the opportunity to listen to somebody tell their story, even if it's something you think you've heard before or something, I like urge you to take the opportunity to listen.
Thank you. Scott, how about for you?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I said. Over the last few years, the types of medication, the modulators that have been coming out, and I feel like every other day there's a new press release. It's been approved for this age group or this mutation. And again, it's a direct result of the volunteers and of everything that you guys do. And I think it takes a special person to give of themselves the way you guys do. And I will always be grateful. So if there's one thing that you get from me here, it's just know how grateful I am to all of you and to my fellow CF warriors, because I truly believe you're all warriors.
We're grateful right back, Scott. And Randell.
As you can see, I'm probably one of the youngest in the room today, which is great, and all you volunteers are amazing, but I think now it's in your hands to get your children, your children's friends involved in events like we all throw, a walk, a ball, a bowling event, a car wash, whatever it might be, and that this room becomes bigger with the younger generation. That's what we need, to just keep relaying the message down, down, down. And again, having you guys here, you all have a connection with CF in some way, and whether it's instilling, getting your kids involved in anything from the time they can remember, and then just they'll share with their friends, who will share with their friends, and be excited about the power of the word of mouth, And so hopefully in the next couple of years, we see this room 2 times, 3 times as big, and a lot of the younger generation will be here as well.
Thank you so much. So with that, we are wrapping up our panel. I want to thank everyone who joined us, both here in the room and those who were able to engage online, for being such an engaged audience. I hope that we're all leaving, I know I do, I'm leaving with really, again, what a more honest picture of what it's like to live with CF at different stages of life. And Chyann just spoke to that story changes over time, and really an understanding that every person with CF carries a story, that story is uniquely their own, and one that is continuing to shape how we advocate, how we innovate, and how we continue to partner with the CF community to move forward together. To our panelists, Randell, Scott, and Chyann, thank you. We are so grateful for your openness, yes. We are incredibly grateful for your openness, your kindness, your time, your authenticity that you brought to today's conversation. Enjoy the rest of today's VLC, and thank you so much for joining us.